All right, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Newton has agreed to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the next item on the agenda is some brief opening remarks from me. First of all, thank you, everybody, for being here. We appreciate your support and your time. For those or anybody who's watching or in the room that is new to this process, it's just the very, very beginning stages of our budget deliberations. Every year, after the two boards have come up with their +1 budgets, we get the three boards together just to have an open, free-flow, informal discussion about where we're at and answer questions and try to start to get on the same page. So this was an experiment. Before my time, we used to hold all these meetings in the senior center. The last few years, we've been holding them in here because of the capacity to do Zoom and to record them. So we got the hand-me-down conference table from the chief. Thanks, Chief, for the table. It's a little too crowded for my taste, but I like the informality of it. But the good news is by this time next year for sure, the upgrades we're making to the senior center conference room will have the capacity to take meetings and to do Zoom, so we'll have a lot more room to spend on it. So thank you for your patience on that. Anybody have anything else on opening remarks? If not, we'll roll right into it. So what we'll do is we'll start with the Board of Selectmen. We'll present our +1 budget. I'll have a very high-level overview, high points. I know Mike will also want to add a few things. I'll kind of go around the table then while we're on our budget. Ask everybody here if you have any questions or concerns or anything you'd like to address tonight. I may do the same thing with the Board of Ed budget. You're going to speak first?
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll do the same thing. We'll go around. Does anybody have any questions? Then we'll move to the Board of Finance. They can talk about their projections and what they're seeing. After we've done all of that, we will have public comment. We'll run the public comment like we do at a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll time folks, that kind of thing. So write down questions, those kind of things. Everybody okay with that? All right, then we will get started. As I said, Ben, you're here.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. On the Board of Selectmen's +1 budget, I wanted to start with a very high-level summary and just a couple of main points. The first thing I want to do is thank our entire team on the municipal side for getting us here where we're at. I do want to especially thank our financial team, which of course is Mike and Kimmy and Betsy. But I want to extend the thank yous beyond them and really thank all of our employees. I want to explain why. We have really needed their help and support in the last few years in refocusing and restructuring some of the things we do to even get us here tonight. So I think in the last year or so, we have renewed all three of our collective bargaining agreements. All of the members of those unions worked really hard with us to come up with fair and sensible terms under those agreements. Those, of course, are built in our budget. But they also worked very hard together to work with us to make a commitment that what we agreed to in those agreements was sustainable. So just by way of example, I know you guys did the same thing. A lot of our team members agreed to making certain changes to the healthcare plans that help us kind of manage our costs and so forth. So both our union and non-union employees worked very hard and cooperatively with us to restructure and to adopt changes that make us kind of more efficient and more effective. So I really do mean it. We could not present to you tonight this budget at this amount, at this level, without their dedication and support. So I want to, those of you that are in the room, I want to thank you, and Mike, those who are not in the room, make sure you pass that thanks on. I think you'll see in our budget, the primary focus is public safety, and to be more specific, the budget includes a new patrol officer. Even at 2.4%, we were able to, and with our increases that we bargained for and other things, we were able to add a new patrol officer to the budget. And I think it's time. It's time to ask our taxpayers to support that. I certainly support it. I think as a whole, the Board of Selectmen support it. And I want to thank him a lot publicly, but I want to thank him again, Chief Samson, and the entire Granby PD. I mean, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. When you came on, we asked you to kind of refocus the thought process and make sure that you and all the members of your team and of our law enforcement team were more available and more visible in the public, and you've done everything we've asked you to do and more. I have never heard anything but absolutely positive feedback on the work that you guys are doing. People really appreciate not just you being out in the community, but you being responsive. Those of you that don't know in the room, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything, you call, you got a problem like the speeding on your street, the chief takes your call. He takes it personally. And then he makes sure somebody gets out there and that they address it. And so you've done everything we've asked you to do and more. You too, Captain, obviously, the whole team, we're grateful of that. But we need another officer. It's time. Partly driven by our growth, but mostly driven by the need to keep everybody safe. And I don't just mean our citizens, I mean our officers. For decades, as long as I know, generally speaking, it's not a 100% thing, but generally speaking, we have 2 patrol officers right on any given shift, Chief, and it's worked okay. But we're starting to wear our folks out, in my own opinion, and what we're asking them to do with all these additional community events and the other things they do. And so, God forbid, we have more than 2 calls at once, right, with only 2 patrol officers on duty. We're managing it, but we're managing it by managing it through overtime. And the chief can put more details on this if you have questions, but it's time to get a new officer into that loop. So that's the gist of our budget. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there are any other significant new initiatives in the budget at all, right, besides the...
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions for me before I turn it over to Mr. Walsh? All right, take it away, Mike.
Mr. Walsh sounds so formal, it's Mike, please. Most people in here know me. For those who are out in the viewing audience, my name is Mike Walsh. On March 4th of last year, I was brought in as the town manager of Granby, and I am not only pleased to be here, but thankful for the decision to allow me to serve the community of Granby. If I can ask Catherine to put up a brief PowerPoint. At about 8 o'clock this morning, I started to write down some notes, and I decided, you know what, let's put it in a brief PowerPoint and allow people to walk away with it. And eventually, we'll put this up on the town's website. But the process, as you know it, which is new to me, is what they call the +1. So on November 30th, in your packages, there's a memo. It's about 5 pages long. It was worked on with the help of Kimmy, with the help of Betsy, and some of the other directors. By the way, all of the directors are here either remotely, down the hall outside of my office in the event that there wasn't enough chairs, and then some of the directors are here. So, Mark, I also echo your, praise of each one of the directors. It's been a busy year. We've gone in a lot of different directions. I think we are well prepared as we move forward, and you'll see some of it in this presentation. So it started with a 5-page memo dated November 30th. That went as a communication to the Board of Selectmen in the first meeting in December, and then in the first meeting in January, it was approved to be submitted to this three-board meeting. So the first place I start is with a little bit of a story, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's the next slide, Catherine. As you know, I've got 25 years as a finance director, a town just a little bit east of us. And I've also got a couple of years at the Office of Policy and Management where we looked holistically at other municipalities who really weren't doing the right things. It was called the Municipal Accounting Review Board. And just with a new set of eyes, just to report back, and many of you have heard me say this, this is a commentary on the town of Granby's financial metrics, and it's a positive commentary. You have historically done the right things. You saved adequately for a rainy day. That's called fund balance. With respect to your pensions and OPEB, the fact that you have a pension trust in an OPEB trust makes you solidly taking care of your responsibilities. And on an annual basis, you make the required actuarial contributions. For what does that mean for the pension plan? That means a nearly fully funded, somewhere in the neighborhood of 95 to 97%, and about 57% funded for the OPEB trust. And that's not through lack of effort. That is simply a newer trust, and it will take a little bit more time to fund. OPEB is an acronym for Other Post-Employment Benefits, and traditionally, it's the promises that we make to our first responders and some of our older employees. We generally don't make that promise now, but it pays, it sets aside money today for benefits we may pay out down the road. Each one of those, the pension plan has and the OPEB trust have what they call discount rates. That's a projected rate of earnings, 6.5% for one, 6% of the other. That's very conservative, and that serves you well. Granby is the envy of other towns who wish they would have made the decisions that Granby has made over the years. Bonded indebtedness is low, and that's comparative to other towns of our size. The collection rate is high, and that's a testament to the residents who live here being, paying their bills timely and so forth. We do have a relatively small grand list and few remaining places to invest. So anytime we look to open the budget and add things, it generally goes directly to the taxpayer's bottom line. And that is because state aid, while there is help from the state in the form of educational cost sharing and a few other small grants, it's minimal. And that's because we here in Granby have higher wealth indicators. So I just wanted everybody to start off with a common snapshot. And Catherine, if you can move to the next slide. Embedded in the November 30th memo is this summary as to where we will be in fiscal year 26, which is the third column from the right as you look at it. The three columns to the left of 2026 are actual numbers as of June 30th, 2023, 24, and 25 with respect to the budget that were set. And I want to focus on the town budget, which is the first line. That's moving up from 13.8 million to 14.1 million, or about 331,000, approximately 2.4% under the rate of inflation. And while I'm certainly happy to take any questions on debt service in the capital budget, for the sake of this discussion, those are outside what we want to focus on. Catherine, if I can move you to the next page. So this is a deep dive into where that 331,000, which was on the previous page, and that's minus the debt service and the capital funding, which we'll kind of take as a separate item. Those top four lines, permanent services, medical fringes, retirement benefits, and general government, are the focus of both the +1 memo and this particular PowerPoint. Catherine, can I move you to the next slide? Here's where the numbers are moving. Under that regular full-time salary, we've had 3% contractual raises. As Mark mentioned, we have 4 collective bargaining agreements. We have 63 full-time employees. We have a number of non-bargaining unit employees. In total, 3% contractual raises across the board. In broad brushstrokes is approximately $200,000. To offset some of that, we reduced 2 positions, the Assistant Director of Public Works and the Director of Parks and Recreation. That was a savings of approximately $205,000. And what that caused us to do was reevaluate how our organizations were set up. I want to thank A number of people, namely the Public Works Union and all their employees, and the GMEA union, which is predominantly town hall workers, and all their employees, for really stepping up to the plate and taking on the additional responsibilities that the reduction of those two positions left behind. And for that, the reorganization through negotiation, we put $75,000 of additional responsibilities that were absorbed by the existing folks in those two particular units. As Mark mentioned, the one initiative in this budget is the addition of one police officer. And while the cost of a police officer is certainly in excess of $100,000, we have the ability to bring this employee on over time, meaning it won't be July 1st in a perfect world that individual comes on. There'll be some training that has to be done, there'll be some testing that has to be done, and again, we budgeted what we felt is an appropriate number for the natural, not attrition, but the natural time frame it takes to bring an officer fully on board. We also revised the Board of Education IT agreement. We are moving to an agreement that will see 30% of the two supervisors at the Board of Ed who oversee the town's IT infrastructure, and that resulted in an uptick of about $45,000 this year. So that's the bulk of what's happening in salaries. We've had some substantial changes in medical benefits as well. As you are aware, those 4 collective bargaining agreements were covered by a preferred provider organization, which is a very inefficient, costly method to provide employee medical benefits. They were moved over to a high deductible health plan, which over the course of the year is projected to see a reduction of approximately $124,000 compared to the PPO. A lot of that has to do with a $2,000, $4,000 first dollar deductible that the employees are now responsible for paying. Additionally, we moved to a new stop loss carrier, and I want to caution you, we avoided $424,000 by moving, but that $424 is not savings per se. It would have been additional cost had we not moved. And embedded in that $124,000 is 2.9% medical inflation. And we just had a meeting last week, and we feel like we are on par or on pace to both meet and perhaps gently beat that 2.9% moving forward. With respect to retiree benefits, you heard me in my opening comments say that the town budgets conservatively. The actuarial determined contribution, something we've called the actuarial required contribution in the past, has ticked up by about $52,000. And again, I want to call out the discount rate because it's set very conservatively. Finally, moving over to the general government side of things, we are seeing pressure, inflationary pressure across the board with respect to how we dispose of our refuse collection. You may have heard that Paynes has sold to USA Hauling. I'm familiar with both. The residents should see no change in the pickup. It will be simply a new legal entity, but the service level I expect to remain the same. We are seeing higher disposal costs that had nothing to do with the transfer in ownership of the company, but it has everything to do with the state of Connecticut's disposal policies. We are trucking our waste sometimes to Pennsylvania, sometimes to Ohio, as we no longer have incinerators here or landfills here in the state of Connecticut that can take municipal waste. With respect to municipal software, I've been in this business about 30 years, and I've never seen a single company who is able to provide a cadre of software, a one-stop shop, if you will. So each individual department, from the police department, they have best in class, to the finance department, to the town clerk who uses COT software. We have a suite, a variety of different vendors, and unfortunately, they know that it's difficult to change over or revamp that software. So each and every year, we get hit, and this is not unique to Granby, this is an unfortunate occurrence related to municipal software. That cost across the board for all the software is about $20,000 a year. We have rebid out electricity, gasoline, diesel, and heating oil. That's a net reduction on the town side of about $30,000. CROG, we did use to lock in bids for electricity. Our electricity costs compared to where they were are going up. but compared to where Eversource is, they're going down. So it's, from what perspective do you view these? The fact that we locked them in, we will be enjoying on a gross basis across all utility savings. And then finally, there's $46,000 in terms of we now have more supervisors than we had in the past. For instance, the span of control in the Public Works Department was really one or two, depending on how you counted the director and the assistant director, with a span over 14 individuals. That by far and away was too large, and it resulted, I think, in some inefficiencies, at least in communication alone. By breaking that down into 5 supervisors, we now have smaller spans of control, and more people are responsible for delivering the services, whether that's road repair, whether that's facilities, whether that's parks and what we call our greenscapes, or whether that is just a general supervisor to make sure things like plowing, the setup and the execution of the deliverable in yesterday's storm is complete. So all total, broad brushstrokes, when you look at that, you have $331,000 of increase in costs for a variety of reasons. Catherine, the next slide, and then I'll go through this one very quickly. Other items that I want to bring to your concern. 7 funds out there, from the Parks and Recreation Fund, which has $500,000 in it, to the Sewer Fund, to a variety of other funds. There's $3.4 million of capital that, in my opinion, as the new guy, can work harder. We will work with the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen and Finance to start to map that out and make some suggestions as to how we could possibly lighten the load on the town side. Custodial services. What we have in place is about 60% underfunded, meaning we don't have sufficient cleaning capacity to keep the 55,000 square feet or so in place. Nothing has been recommended in this budget with respect to that or the laborer, but it's something we want to examine in a little bit more detail. And then finally, the last thing is Granby Ambulance. Higher labor costs post-COVID, meaning in order to put somebody who's trained as a paramedic in an ambulance, it costs about $10 more an hour than it did before COVID. And that's simply to get them to respond to the calls. On a federal and state level, we're seeing lower insurance reimbursements. And while there may be some ability to squeeze a little bit more juice out of the insurance reimbursement lemon, I'm only talking $10,000 or $15,000, and that's a one-time. There's a significantly greater issue going on with Granby Ambulance. They have a need for new capital, meaning an ambulance every 4 years. A fully equipped ambulance is about $400,000. They have a dwindling endowment that will result in what I call a 5-year burn rate. Burn rate means when do they run out of cash, and it becomes a real problem. So yes, we have a window of time, but no, every time you see a Granby ambulance, they lose $95 per call, and they're running over 20,000 calls a year. So the Board of Selectmen need to take a look into this issue in some detail soon, and I will relay that to Mark. He's aware of where I stand on it. That's a wonderful organization, and we should figure out a path forward if at all possible. Catherine, last slide. Finally, what's new? You will see what we call a ClearGov budget book. ClearGov is the piece of software that we're using. We're doing that so that the budget book is more understandable and more transparent. There will also be a personal services report by position. So when you open up the town manager's office, you will see the 4 positions, how they're staffed, what they're paid. So you will know with this new budget report where every dollar of your taxpayer money went. Finally, there will be a detailed budget workbook available for the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance members. Will also be available to the general public and anybody else. It will include Form 1s for each department, and those are the statutory responsibilities, which differ greatly by department. There will be Form 2s, which are goals and objectives by department. And then finally, there'll be a brief PowerPoint, much like you've seen here tonight, with an organization chart, unit activities, accomplishments, and any requested capital needs. I think the 3 documents together will be a better, jumping off point for both the +1 budget and the budget workshops and future deliberations. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the discussion back to you. Kimmy and I are prepared for any questions if you have.
Thank you, Mike. I think we'll just go around and circle it. You want to go first or last?
I'll go first. I don't have any questions. So,
All right.
there you go.
Heather?
No questions. Thank you. I actually do have a question for Mike. With regard to the ambulance calls, you said they lose $95 per call every time they roll. As someone who's used them several times, unfortunately, I get a bill for $1,400 every time that I pay. So that's shocking to me that they're losing money when I'm making payments of $1,400 for an ambulance rep.
Correct. Now, so really briefly, really not for the +1 discussion, but there's probably 5 different ways that Granby Ambulance gets paid or doesn't get paid. I would venture to say you have commercial insurance paying that $1,400.
No, it's coming out of my pocket.
Okay,
Because I have a high deductible.
okay. However, even though the first dollar's coming out, they've adjudicated that, your insurance company, and they should have adjusted that to whatever their scale is. That should be the first step. The second step is when we're talking about Granby Ambulance, they have Medicaid, Medicare, Husky, and non-insured. So that $95 is a conglomeration of you're probably paying a significant amount greater than what it costs them to provide that service. But folks who are uninsured, that $95 is significantly more. It might be $300 or $400. I've asked Granby Ambulance for a run of Granby residents, which is about 60% of their business. I'm not interested in names. I'm interested in what their insurance coverage was to really understand how much we're gaining. Gaining is probably the wrong word, on commercial insurance or out-of-pocket pays. How much we're losing on Medicare, which is a different number than Medicaid. Medicaid should be bigger than Medicare. And then, of course, the uninsured would be the biggest number. That should give everybody a better perspective as to when Granby Ambulance runs. The consolidation is $95. Definitely is determined by what insurance you hold if you hold any.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm curious on your 5th slide, what is this stop-loss carrier? I'm not familiar with the term.
I'm going to let Kimmy walk through it, and I'll jump in if there's anything that she's missing.
So every year we renew the stop loss carrier, which is for every claim that is more than $150,000, we get that carrier to cover it. So for example, claim number 1 for the whole year is about $200,000. The claim deductible is $150,000, so that when we buy that coverage, we will get the $50,000 back from the carrier. So that is what we cover it for. So any claim for per participant that is over $150,000 will be covered by that stop loss insurance. Yep.
Karen, yeah. Donna, you were done?
Yes, thank you.
Karen,
How's that?
Greg, you have to go. Some of this a little bit, maybe, any questions?
No, it's not new. I will hold my tongue on the insurance side of it. So I'm good.
So the stop loss or the,
All of it. Insurance companies are not paying, you're paying because you have high deductible plans. And that's what we've switched to benefit our budget, and I get it, and that's all I'll say.
all right. Bill? Jay?
Just a couple of questions. On Public Works, we've worked really hard to add another body last year, long overdue in my opinion. So I guess I was surprised to see, setting aside the titles, that we're down one again, but then we have custodial services. So why aren't we trying to hold on to I mean, I know it would be more money, but why aren't you asking for that now? Why are we allowing that to drop back down?
So Kirk is sitting right in back of me, and he has a much longer perspective. I would like to see us try to, with the existing workforce, knowing that there's shortfalls in custodial, in wondering if we do need a laborer. I don't dispute that a laborer would provide a higher level of service, but I also have some questions because we only, since June, put in the 5 supervisors. I meet with them biweekly now with Kirk, and I think they may come to the table with opportunities that Kirk and I haven't seen. I could be wrong.
Okay, so you're hoping that the reorganization, you want to let the reorganization play out before you know if you need.
I want to hear from the boots on the ground. Not that Kirk wasn't the boots on the ground. I want to hear from the boots on the ground that another laborer is needed, because there's no doubt that if we added it, it would provide additional service. I'm wondering if we can't get partially there with the existing workforce we have.
Okay.
So before you go on, so I want to amplify that. I'm actually grateful for that, right? Because again, we, to make some difficult decisions in what we prioritize when. And I think as a group of board of selectmen, we prioritize the patrol officer. And I think it's a very good move with the restructuring to just ease our way into it and see whether we have additional capacity or not before we go forward with that. So.
Okay. And on Granby Ambulance, I appreciate you calling out the need to be figuring this out. And, but I guess my question is, why aren't we trying to do something about it in this budget?
I'm going to answer that. We know there's an issue we have to resolve if we want to keep a community-based ambulance service in Granby. It is very complicated because we're not the only town that's served. The issues that go into how much they lose and how much they don't lose and how we can help them or maybe not help them is complicated. We are not going to solve them in any one budget. We've begun to try to work to solve them because we put some capital numbers in the capital plan for ambulances, for example. We also are spending $4.5 million on a brand new communication system, which they're benefiting directly from. So, but I will make this, I was going to make it in the budget workshops because we're going to get into a little bit more detail, but I'm just make it tonight for anybody who cares. We're not going to solve this problem in this budget, but we are going to sit down and try to work together to come up with a plan that is sustainable. Throwing money at it 1 year to the next is not the right thing to do. We need to come up with a plan that's sustainable well into the future. And Mike's got some ideas on how to do that. They won't all come together in this budget cycle, which is why we're approaching it the way we are.
I appreciate that. It's been a couple of years of, we're not solving it yet. So I'm grateful that Mike is going to help us solve it.
I'm going to hold my tongue, much as Fred held his. Kevin?
I guess just first of all, looking forward to the new ClearGov budget book. So should be interesting to see if it's broken out more. I did have just a question on the additional officer. So I think in the +1 it was 150 quote, and then here you're quoting 100. Is that the kind of the ramp up, the difference?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was,
Benefits.
so we have it in 2 pieces. We have 100 in salaries and 40 in benefits.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's in at 140 in total.
140. Okay.
Yeah, 100 in one line and 40 in the other.
Okay. And I do recall from, I guess, previous discussions that it was also more about getting an additional officer or different sergeant. Is that part of this whole move, like essentially to get the supervisor to promote one of the officers?
I will,
Maybe that's that chief
to give
question.
a lead in and then turn it over to the chief briefly. So there's 3 reasons why an officer should be brought on. It has everything to do with, there's a report that goes back to 1992, and that's before some of the growth that we've recently experienced. So number 1 is officer safety. Number 2 is supervision. And number 3 is, if we do it correctly, there should be a small reduction in overtime. So some of it will pay for itself. But I will defer to the chief, who can flesh out those 3 discussions.
Yeah, Chief, before you go, just about, I apologize for Kevin. That is clearly part of what we're trying to do, is the anticipation to also get some supervisory help through this process. I wanted to focus on the safety, but that is something that the chief has said we need to do, and we will accomplish with this, but go ahead, Chief, sorry.
Yeah, best practice for a town our size
When you look at any type of accreditation, or if you look at a report where a department goes south, it's usually it's lack of supervision, right? You could Google any contractor's report that comes in and does a consult on a police department, it's lack of supervision. Most shifts I have out there, many shifts, are unsupervised. We have 2 patrolmen, which is not good. Going back probably in the 90s at some point, there were several studies done that said you should have a 1 and 3, I think, per shift. We're staffed for a 1 and 2 most of the time, sometimes a 1 and 3, depending on how our schedule works. We're on a 4-day work week, 2 days off, 4 days, so it staggers that way. But when you look at downtime meaning training, days off, vacation, never mind injury, if we're down, we always have a backfill. So the amount of training that's happened, a lot of unfunded mandated training that's come out in the last 5 years with police accountability bills and stuff, has made that number even worse. So there's many shifts that we're only running 2. So knowing that, I'm going to try to do my best to make it the most efficient way. Like I probably said this before, if you give me $1, I'm going to get $1 worth of policing. And it'll be the best dollar you're ever going to get for that, for policing, but it's only going to be $1 worth. So I believe midnights is fine with the 2 that we have. It's really the second shift. We're here Monday through Friday. It's not ideal. You should never have your chief taking a call for service for the liability aspects of it alone, but does happen from time to time. But that second shift, what we're trying to do through a little bit of overtime, through the extra officer, provide more backfill, make another supervisor. So we have a unique system here as well. Our sergeants take call for service. So you might have a sergeant and 1 working, but that would be the lowest we want to go. Many times the sergeant, for the time off, it's only 2 officers, but so the sergeant's taking a beat. So a lot of times they're taking their own calls, their own investigations as a supervisor. So we really got to fill that gap at minimum, that second shift, and sometimes on the weekend. So we're going to be able to do that just to protect the town better. In a liability sense, it pays for itself. But then just have better public service. And to have that extra person, we've definitely been out, we've increased our community events, we've increased things that the officers go to or participate in, so we're looking to do that too. So it's a big ask, I really want to, but, I know that we're strapped and funding is tight, so we're going to try to do the best we can with the 1.
Thank you.
Anything else, man?
Not for now.
Before we go to you, Mike, I know Kelly is on Zoom, so picturing in my head, she's between you and Kevin somewhere. Kelly, did you have anything?
No, Mark, I'm all set. Good for now.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, nothing from me. I've asked questions of town hall, like Kevin and staff. Answered to date, and there'll be more.
Ed?
With the police officer, what we just talked about, does the SRO, the request of the SRO play into this at all? If we also get an SRO with the supervisory role?
I will start the question and then the chief can clean it up. The request for an additional police officer, patrol officer, which may be a sergeant when it all is said and done through other means, is separate and distinct from the SRO on the Board of Education side. Intuitively, most people think, well, if you're hiring 1, you can overlap, and that's actually not the case. This is where the chief will expand on the difference between a police officer and an SRO program. There is not a lot of ability, even in the summer, when the SRO individual may not be working for the school, to be very helpful on the town side. And with that, let me turn it over to the chief, and you can kind of explain why.
Let me clarify my question. I might not, I don't think I asked it the right way, Mike. Police chief, is there additional demand on supervisory due to the SRO? And do we need increased budget to support that supervisory support? Or is it absorbed within your budget?
There's a good answer here and a bad answer.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. So, unfortunately for the greatest captain in the state, because we're here Monday through Friday when the SRO is working, it'll be a direct report to the captain. We've talked about it, they might go through, for administrative duties and stuff that way, through a sergeant, just to keep chain of command. But ultimately, we're here, so especially in the beginning, that's going to be something that both myself and the captain and Sherry are going to be heavily involved with to get the program running the way we want it to look and to fine tune it. So instead of just saying, hey, the patrol sergeant, you take care of that role, we're going to be heavily involved with that. So no new cost with that as on the supervisory end.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and realize it's a whole new role, so we got to figure out a lot of things along the way. So, with the Board of Ed is also asking for, I believe in the budget was some groundskeeper support, and then the question of, hey, maybe we need some more custodial support. What's the relationship between the BOE and BOS in regards to synergies and opportunities across the two for these kinds of roles? In my view, we have an expanded physical footprint. We have the same number of buildings, same number of yardage, same number of so on. So is there opportunity to have these kind of conversations, and do we have them to see where we're able to combine forces?
I'll speak.
Let me go first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's something we should look at. And I've been very grateful for Sherry and the Board of Ed team for looking at those kind of synergies. That's how we got to the point we are with the IT. I think that's another one that we can look at. In fairness, everybody's new. So Sherry's plate's full, Mike's plate's full. It's not something we focused on yet. My own personal perspective is, I don't know where the discussions would lead, but there's no reason not to have them. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was simply going to comment on the IT agreement. So I came here, as I mentioned, March 4th. The one function that is shared between the town and the board, and it is shared very, very well, is the IT function. We basically, on the town side, we have one full-time employee, Tristan, who goes basically door to door on the town side and fixes and addresses whatever we need to be addressed. He is staffed or supervised by Frankie and John, who have provided yeoman's work on a number of ARPA projects, from the senior center to this town hall meeting room, to the animal shelter, to the police department, to the town clerk's office. So much so that I couldn't imagine moving forward without the Board of Ed's IT help. Is that a template to look at other things? From my perspective, sure, but I'm also cognizant that the way the Board of Education is a separate and distinct unit, and while the town can ask them, they must acquiesce and basically say, yes, we want to do this. So it's worthy of a discussion, and it is all dependent on the board's desire to join.
We tried two versions of that. Yeah. Fire with Kirk.
Say that last part again?
Fire with Kirk.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Didn't go so hot.
those kind of refocusing and restructurings are not easy. I'm gonna, again, from my perspective, I'll just say, and I think we've done a good job of it. There's no reason not to have the discussions. I don't know where they will lead or what solutions are we would find or not find, but there's no reasons not to have these discussions. And we actively have them all the time. Monica and I and Sherry and Mike meet at least once a month, so.
I will throw out one last comment. So, some of the things like custodial is X amount per square feet. What I found is there's generally not tremendous cost savings anytime you throw in, but you get a better level of service, you get more consistency, and you get resiliency and redundancy. You get intangible things more so than budgetary savings.
Last question is with the software, and I don't know, with the Clear, you were talking about Clear, that's a new software we're implementing. Is software like that able to reach across into the Board of Ed type of budget processing, or is it, there's no such thing as unified software that would support a?
Well, we are on the same platform generally.
Yeah, we currently the town and the Board of Ed, we all use the same financial software, Infinite Visions.
Okay.
But for the ClearGov, the Board of Ed definitely can join, but currently only the town implement.
Okay. There's curiosity more than anything else, just how extendable is the software when we think about getting it?
Kevin said he's looking forward to the new format, and I'm a little leery, but I'm only leery because the numbers scare me. But it's my understanding, I should stop being facetious, I never get anywhere being facetious. It's my understanding that, and will be the test case on the town side, that first of all, it creates correct me if I'm wrong, the software creates a great deal of efficiency for us, because in the past, we had to maintain like 5 different spreadsheets, and if you change one number over here, you got to remember to change. Consolidates all that, that's right, that's what our ClearGov's doing for us. And then the second, we have a better capacity than we had in the past to customize reports. So as we get feedback from you or from the public that they're not sure they understand it, or could you do it this way, so it's easier for us to figure out, ClearGov does that in a much better way. So that's why we made the switch, right? So, but it'll be, I take the facetious part off of it, it will be new for us this year, it'll be new for the board. Selectmen will be new for you guys, the format will be new, and it'll be new for the public. So it might take us a little while to get through it, because it'll appear differently than it had in the past. Sorry, is that good?
Yeah, one comment I would make is the platform we are on is, if I understand it correctly, is a stripped-down version of a much more robust system called Munis. I came from a Munis world, and we paid $150,000 a year for licensing fees across the town and the Board of Ed. What is our fee for our software?
Probably 33% of 150.
Okay, so we're paying, roughly $40,000, $45,000 a year. Some of the functionality of the existing software isn't the best, so ClearGov will clear that up. But to give you an idea, Munis feeds into ClearGov. We're actually doing it the other way. We will build the budget in ClearGov and then feed it back into the system. So again, credit to Betsy, credit to Kimmy for knowing that kind of stuff, but Granby, because of its size, is not blessed with some of the most robust software. Was that politically correct?
More than mine, so yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Monica, we'll move on to you on the board. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. So when I said we would start over there, thank you, Mark, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't have any questions. I look forward to trying out the new budget workbooks with the working group we're going to have to discuss the board of selectmen budget.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. If we could pull up the PowerPoint presentation for the Board of Ed, please. And before we get going with the PowerPoint, I just want to take a brief moment here and let my son know, who's being so patient in the audience, that his father's coming soon to pick him up. So he should be here very soon. He's on his way. And thank you for being so patient. And before I get going on this, I want to, similar to First Selectman Fiorentino, I really want to thank everyone for helping put this together. The amazing work of Superintendent Burke, Assistant Superintendent Parsons, Nikki Stevenson is really amazing, and I want to thank everyone. We have so many from the administration and staff here with us, and that's greatly appreciated. Thank you for being here and for your contributions as well, and of course our Board of Education, who worked so hard and asking great questions and trying to get this going and moving forward. All right, so beginning. Next slide, please. as we usually start, we talk about how our schools are Granby's future. You know, these are the kids that we are investing in. These are the staff that we are working with. So just some nice little pictures. You can move on to the next slide. Before I get going into the current numbers, we wanted to provide sort of a historical percentage increase, a historical perspective to what we've been doing. So for FY26, the current proposed +1 budget, and of course, we have to keep in mind that this is still early on. We have a lot of different X factors to consider as we move forward. But the current proposed budget is 5.67%. You can see this is lower than the past 2 years. Of course, it's not as low as the 2 years prior to that. But it's just a hair above what was approved for last year's budget. We're awaiting all sorts of additional information in regard to this percentage, things that can change this percentage. For example, and I think this has been discussed in our Board of Education meetings, the negotiations for our busing contract continue to be underway, and we have an opportunity to save additional funds there. Thank you again to Nikki Stevenson, who's really been doing a fantastic job in renegotiating that contract more to our favor. So that's still outstanding, and obviously that will have an impact on that number as well. In order for us to open the doors, the percentage that we need is 3.5%. So the 5.67% is open our doors, plus some intentional additions that we want to generate additional programs like special education development as an opportunity. Oh, I'm getting to you. I will get to it. So the 5.67% includes important initiatives. And I'm going to list them out here. And then later throughout the presentation, we're going to go into some additional details in regard to some of the other programs. So first off, and we've already heard a little bit about this tonight, we have the School Resource Officer Program. This School Resource Officer Program, 0.26% of the 5.67 is for the SRO specifically. So we estimated approximately $100,000 for the SRO. On January 6th, a survey was sent out throughout the entire community and asking the community if there was support for this SRO program. In a really great response, we received over 750 responses, and 80% of people that responded said that the schools would benefit from the presence of an SRO. And right along with that, 80% agreed that $100,000 was worthy of the program. So we're really proud of that response. We also gave an opportunity for people to email additional commentary to either me or Sherry. Thank you.
Poor kid.
In addition to that, we have the expansion of district special education programming. I will go into further detail on that further down the road. We're trying to be proactive in things that we can do here in Granby in an effort to keep costs down. We also like to replace a tutor with a certified reading intervention teacher. This would just be a change in position, someone who would meet our current student needs. So instead of a tutor, we would benefit more from a reading intervention teacher. As discussed with the town as well, additional grounds and maintenance personnel would be helpful. We have approximately 257,000 square feet of grounds. We've estimated that we're understaffed by approximately 50%. I just want to say right now that I think we'd be more than happy to at least initiate a discussion with the town in regard to how we can possibly share services and all mutually benefit from this. It is something that we need. In Granby, we all know that we're blessed with a great deal of land and a lot of buildings as well to take care of. So we would be happy to engage in those discussions and see if we can accomplish something. The 5.67% also includes the ever-present unfunded state mandates. Here, we had to change our reading program, the curriculum. We had to add the teacher evaluation plans. There were some changes to athletics. The curriculum change, I just want to touch base on real quick. I think last year, it was determined that we had to change our reading program. So due to just some really exceptional negotiation work on behalf of Assistant Superintendent Jen Parsons, this is actually going to cost us less than we anticipated. It's going to be $66,000 for the first year. Last year we were really afraid that it was going to be exceeding, getting close to $500,000, but it's not. So it's $66,000 for the first year, and I want to say it's a little more than that in the second year. Yeah, just getting close to maybe 130-ish. So many thanks to Assistant Superintendent Parsons for that. We had an opportunity to review some of the new curriculum in our curriculum subcommittee meetings, and it's really fantastic. We're really excited about it. They did a pilot program with it, and it went over exceptionally well for our students, and the teachers are also excited about it. Next slide, please. All right, 72% of our budget supports salaries and benefits, or our people. They are by far our most valuable asset. As we all know, there's been a high demand for qualified teachers across Connecticut and across the nation, quite honestly. We are also, if you see below that, the reduced savings with teacher retirements. One of the reasons we're seeing that is because there aren't as many people going into the education profession now. So there's a lot of districts jockeying for the same people, and that's causing salaries to go up. We just recently negotiated our teacher's contract. We feel that went very well. We feel like there was a very positive enforcement there. But yeah, we did give them an increase, and now we are going to be paying for that. So that's why you see 70% of the budget supports salaries and benefits. As we discussed earlier, inflation is up 2.7%. The cost of supplies and services continues to increase for everything. And then again, the unfunded state mandates. Next slide, please. I wanted to touch base a little bit on enrollment. There's a lot of discussion in regard to our enrollment declining. And then sometimes in the public too, I get questions in regard to whether our enrollment is increasing because of the new housing developments going up. So I thought it would be helpful to get a perspective of what it looks like in our enrollment. The colored version on the screen is a little bit easier to see when you can see the red. So what you're seeing there is a lot of up and down in a variety of different grades. In the end, at the very end, the district total, you'll see that we are down 22, but we're not down 22 in one place. We're down 22 throughout the entire spectrum, PK to 12. So it changes, it makes it a little bit more complicated as far as reducing staff. However, the budget that we're presenting you with does include a reduction of 3.8 total full-time employees. So we reduced one full-time employee for the first grade, basically removing a section because of the enrollment, which you can see above. We reduced one full-time employee in the third grade and 1.8 full-time employees across secondary positions with world language and electives. The Board of Education also has undergone a study in regard to moving our middle school and high school onto a unified schedule. If we have an opportunity to merge the schedules, we have an opportunity to share teachers, services, programming throughout those two buildings, which, while the primary benefit is to give a better education to our students, the secondary result of that would be an opportunity for cost savings. And we're exploring that right now. And again, like I said before, since this is early, they're still working on what sort of scheduling changes can be made that will benefit the students and benefit our budget. Next slide, please. Thank you. We always have a lot of discussion in regard to special education, so we thought it would be beneficial for us to touch upon a variety of different programs here. Special education accounts for 1.82% of the 5.67%. Some of the things that we're looking for here are 4 full-time employee teaching assistants for the Bear Transition Academy, which I'll talk about in more detail later, that being the program for 18 to 22-year-olds that's run out of the Y right now. 1 full-time employee teaching assistant for the RISE program at Kelly Lane. 1 full-time employee a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, which we've talked a lot about in our meetings as a truly beneficial position for children in the special education program, for Alternative Learning Center, which exists at the middle school and the high school, as well as the RISE program. So as specified here, 0.5 of that comes from the operating budget and 0.5 would come from the mental health grant. So trying to divide that up there. So shortly, I'm going to start going through the variety of programs that were started up with essentially no startup costs. So hang tight until we get to there. All right, next slide, please. Again, this gives you a glimpse into what I'm talking about when we're talking about the number of students in special ed and that percentage that we're advocating for. So we have at Kelly Lane, 19 students in PK, 36 students from K to 2, 60 at Wells Road, 71 at grades 6 to 8, and at our high school, 93 students. Our Bear Transition Academy currently has 3 Granby students, plus 3 students from other towns. And then we have 26 students that are attending private outplacements by their PPTs. So, and then 13 attending magnets. In focusing on the highlighted number there, the 26 students that have to be outplaced because we're unable to provide them with the services that they require, I wanted to give everybody a perspective on how much it costs for transportation and tuition for the outplacement. And it costs us approximately $110,000 per student, which is a total of $2.86 million. So just to put all these in perspective and moving forward into the programs that we're working to develop in-house in an effort to try to cut that cost and keep kids here. So the total count as of October 1st is 321 special education students. Of course, this number can fluctuate over the course of a year, but this is the number that we tally per year. And 321 is as of October. So next slide, please. Why do we want to keep students in district? The primary focus is really about what's good for the kids in the community. We want students who are from Granby to stay in Granby. We want them to be part of Granby. So we want to have their needs met in the neighborhood school with peers. We want them to participate with their community where they know. They have an opportunity to participate in extracurricular events and programs. And there's careful oversight on a daily basis. Granby knows what the Granby kids need. On the financial side, it's an opportunity to reduce costs. There's no outside of district transportation, no outside of district tuition, an ability to provide in-house services with appropriately trained staff, and careful oversight on a daily basis to adjust programming and potential to reduce costs. Next slide. So the Bear Transition Academy is right now, it's in existence. We've already moved forward with it. We have an idea of what can be done with it. So I think it'll be entering its 3rd year next year. We're currently we're in the 2nd year now. So this gives you an idea of how much money can be saved by Granby by having students attend the Bear Academy as opposed to an outplacement. So for FY26, we have 8 students who will be attending. The per student cost is $48,603 for a total of $388,000 plus. An out-of-district cost would total $1.27 million. So the existence of our Bear Academy is saving us $881,000 next year. All right, now I'm finally going to talk about all the different special ed programs that have been developed simply by effectively utilizing the talented staff that we have or filling older positions with a newer concept. So first off, we have RISE. RISE is Reaching Independence with Support and Education. This exists at Kelly Lane for pre-K to 2. This is focusing on student-specific programming individualized to them with a focus on academics and functional communication skills. There's been a high demand for this. The program has been started with absolutely no cost to the district, and it is going exceptionally well. There's a lot of opportunity for this program, as well as a need throughout surrounding communities. We also have PAVE, the Personal Academic and Vocational Experiences, which focuses on applied academics, vocational experiences, and real-world examples. It's about social skills within curriculum to enhance students' learning, but prepares them for life beyond the classroom. If I understand correctly, this is the pre-program for the Bears Academy. Next slide, please. You have the Bear Transition Academy, which we've talked about already, which is at the YMCA currently. Over time, we will outgrow the space there if it continues to move at the speed it's moving, but it's going very well. And then there's also been a development of an alternative learning program for grades 6 through 12, and this is in a pilot stage. And this is really an opportunity for us to keep kids in district, for kids who have PTSD, anxiety, emotional dysregulation, school avoidance. The program has been started and is going well. I included some slides in regard to the Q&D fund and small capital, but there aren't any major differences here. So I give them to you as an opportunity to look at. I won't go through this line by line unless anyone wants me to. Small capital, transportation equipment, furniture, and such. You can move to the graph, the small, yeah, there we go, perfect. Here's a list of the small capital improvement fund matters. We've moved some things over to the CPAC committee, but you can see what's going on over there. Yeah. If there's any questions, let me know, but again, I'm not going to dive too far. This is very similar to what it's looked like previously.
Can I just point out, Monica, that the mandated HVAC testing is a state requirement? That's pretty costly that we have to pay.
Yes, the mandated HVAC testing is included in this budget, and we have to do it. It is enormously expensive to have it tested. I forget, what was the exact number for the high school?
It was over $160,000 for the high school, but as we shared with the Board of Ed, when this was last discussed, we'll be going out to bid, we're looking at competitive pricing, but we needed to put a number in there, so we went with the high school, which is our largest campus, because it was an unknown at the time that this was developed.
Right. So it does have to be done for every building, and of course, the amounts to test it doesn't include the amounts to fix anything that they find that needs to be repaired. CPAC, large capital needs. I don't think any of this is very new, and it's certainly included on the CPAC list. Safety and security, our track, as everyone knows, is in desperate need for repair, and sprinkler system upgrades, parking lot repairs, etc. So the +1 budget recap on the next slide, please.
One more, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. It supports our contractual obligations, it funds the special education requirements, it creates some in-district programs for special education that we're hoping will save additional funds down the road. We don't see a decreasing need for this programming anytime soon. It meets unfunded mandates, maintains curriculum and instruction needs. Obviously, we're impacted by rising costs and inflation. Next slide. So, this is our return on investment, giving our kids a quality education. And I am, open to any questions. And thankfully, I have Superintendent Burke and Nikki Stevenson to help me out.
Superintendent, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I would just like to thank Monica. You did a great job. I really want to highlight that we make very intentional decisions about what will help meet our current needs as well as be future ready when we think about the students that are in our schools, pre-K, 4 years old, all the way to the age of 22. And that is a dynamic process. It's often challenging to project and plan ahead. We've been very committed to doing more with less. And so reorganizing and developing what we're calling programs. They're beautiful classrooms that are meeting the needs of small groups of children. And our hope is to keep them here in Granby schools for as long as we're able, because that's really what's good for kids. We do believe that as we can establish programs, because I talk to all of our neighboring districts, and just like us, they are stretched thin to meet the demands of our students. I do believe that we would have the ability to partner, much like we're talking about between municipality and Board of Ed, neighboring school districts as well need this kind of programming. And so Bear Academy in year 3 is starting to gain a reputation of a really excellent program. But that won't always be the case. We're doing it because it's what's good for Granby kids. And perhaps we will be able to meet needs of other communities to garner some offset to the budget, as well as grow the programs as the needs of our children, ebb and flow. So I'm happy to answer any questions or share any additional details.
All right, we'll start this way this time. You ready, Ben?
I'm good. I've had an opportunity to go into detail with the Board of Ed on their numbers.
You have, or you haven't?
I have.
Okay. Mike?
I just want to thank Sharon, Nikki, for answering the questions that I've sent to you, and you'll see more. One question right now, the 4 TAs for the Bear Academy, are those existing staff that were hired?
So
This year.
this would be additional staff in the FY26 budget because the program is growing. So we have currently 3 Granby students in the program. Next year we will have 8 Granby students in the program. And because of the nature of the needs of these particular students, as well as the programming, which is really about work skills and internships and experiences out in the community, we require teaching assistants to go out with them to their job sites and work experiences. So in order to grow the program, we do need to add additional teaching assistants. That is true for most of our special education programming. The ask is often the teaching assistants, because those are one-to-one experiences for students with some significant need. So that's an addition to the current teaching assistants in our 25 budget.
For students from outside the system, you're still planning on 2.
Correct.
Okay. And that's where the 85,000 revenue
In
comes
the
from.
current year, yep, correct.
That is correct.
85 that you project for next year as well.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, those revenue pieces for next year are just as important as seeing the expense side, as you'll see shortly. So,
Carly?
You hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Just one question. I know Mike is doing a new budget booklet format that's going to have a lot more detail. Is the Board of Ed going to be doing something similar along that lines?
No. Not at this time.
Is there any reason behind that, or?
Would you like to speak to how expensive it would be? We don't have any means to purchase software. We have looked into the same platform. As Mike said, it's very expensive. It would have been about another $150,000 to our budget. I don't know where ClearGov came in or where that was purchased, but we've not been able to purchase new software for the coming year. Or we would have had to have done it last year.
Your software it doesn't push out anything that provides more detail?
No. Everything you see, we create with Excel spreadsheets and Nikki's hard work. We do not have any programs that can do that for us. We have started to look into it. I believe the quote was about $160,000. Yeah. It was about $160,000 plus a tremendous amount of professional development and training for all of our staff. So we did not include that in the +1 budget going forward. It was just cost prohibitive at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Got it, Kelly?
That's it.
Thank you. Kim?
I guess just a follow-up, so I thought it was 33% the 100K or 40?
So mixing different numbers.
Yeah.
So the cost of ClearGov to the town of Granby, do you remember, Kimmy?
Close to 50.
Close to
For the,
50,000.
for the implementation fee.
Yep.
The recurring fee is about 15,000.
So the one-time buy it and install it, 50,000. We used American Rescue Plan Act money for that, so you won't see it in the particular budget. And then the recurring cost is about $15,000 every year. I think we paid 1 or 2 years, 3 years. We used American Rescue Plan Act money. So you won't see that 15 in the general fund budget for 3 more years. The correlation I was saying that the town of East Hartford paid about $150,000 for Munis. What we're paying is about 1/3 of that for a watered down version.
Right.
So when you go to ClearGov, the apples to apples comparison is it was 50,000 one time for us. I don't know, was it 150 for you?
It was Munis. We can't use ClearGov.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it was about
so to
150.
buy the software that's robust enough to do more disclosure transparency is about 150, and that's going to the full-blown Munis version.
Yeah, and we don't have ARPA funds available on the Board of Ed side any longer, but you do, so that's a great way to use a grant. If we had it, we would be doing the same.
A question on the resource officer. I think in here you had said 100,000 again. This probably goes back to the 150 number that we've been kind of throwing around for the patrol officer. But it is, essentially it's a patrol officer, right? I know their title would be an SRO, but essentially they would have all the duties.
Similar duties. SROs have to go through a significant amount of different training, similar to what our teachers go through. So they have to be prepared to work in the educational environment. But I'm gonna pivot over to Chief Sansom, who knows everything about this.
Yeah, no, so you are right. It is a patrolman at a patrolman rank within the structure of a certified police officer. But then, like you said, they have to go through a lot of specialized training. And I think this year we're gonna make it mandatory, just on my legislative hat, to have them train. I would never put an officer not trained in the school, but right now it's not a mandate, to go through police officer SRO training. But they're already mandated by state statute to go through the same types of training that a regular teacher would. Not necessarily to teach a class, but the other trainings, and you guys would know better about the certain classes that you need to before you enter a classroom.
De-escalation, mental health first aid,
Yes.
signs of suicide, all the mental health things that are an essential part of our jobs
But
now.
pay rate contractually, that I would have to pay that person is a patrolman level police officer.
So, but which is the loaded salary, 150, not 100.
So we were advised to use 100K as a placeholder.
Okay.
Again, this is a very early budget, so my guess is that number is going to have to flex a little bit. The Board of Education has not yet actually approved the SRO program to be a part of our school district, but because the +1 comes before, so we're using that as a placeholder. Currently, and then once it's approved by the Board of Ed, and I work on a memorandum of understanding with Chief Sansom and Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, then we will have those details fleshed out by the time we do the Board of Ed adopted budget in March.
I guess, will we see more, maybe this is like the reporting, kind of more detail around the funding of the small cap projects? And is there an actual more detailed report that you have for that?
Like the dollar amounts, is that what you're looking for? Yeah, we'll be providing the associated dollars with each of the projects that we're recommending.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good for now, thank you.
I think their document has it, doesn't it?
I think the initial PowerPoint presentation, right, has it.
That one does it.
Not in this one here, but in previous ones.
No,
Okay.
before this one.
I'm good.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I'll be interested to see what ClearGov does. But historically, my perception is the Board of Ed budget book, it may be really hard to put together, but it has a lot of transparency in it. And the public has commented at the public hearing
Yeah, it's so detailed.
that there was a lot more information on the Board of Ed side than there was on the town side, at least at the budget books that go out to the public. So it'll be interesting to see that comparison.
A little friendly competition, Mr. Wick.
Yeah.
Something you and I will enjoy.
On the teachers, broadly speaking, I've been concerned for a while about, I've always said, we need to be in the top quartile of results in our Granby Public Schools. We don't have to be in the top quartile of pay, but we shouldn't be below 50%. And not as a matter of policy, but just, quality of life here is good, we don't have to pay. But we were getting lower and lower last I was involved. And you made the comment that you have settlements. So roughly speaking, where are we in our comparables with the DRGs and so forth? Are we in the 50th percentile? Are we still below? How is that looking? Because that's a big concern.
So during this negotiation, we were below 50% considerably. The Board of Ed worked really hard with our Granby Educators Association to compensate them in order to close that gap. However, I will report that towns that are, boards of ed that are negotiating currently are going up much higher. So the average right now is 14.5% across 3 years. And our teachers just received, I believe, about 12.5% over 3, which was high for us. It was a really welcomed and appreciated increase. However, timing-wise, I'm hearing from our superintendents in neighboring communities that they're settling in the FY 25 into 26 over 14.5% over 3 years. And so if they started ahead of us and they're adding that kind of increase, it will keep Granby in a similar range. And I do think, just my own anecdotal information, we have less and less young people going into education. The needs of our students and families is rising considerably with behaviors and mental health, and the job is challenging. Granby, you are correct, Jenny, is a wonderful community to work in, and we support our educators and we support our schools. And that is certainly something that I know our educators value. We keep our teachers here in Granby a long time. And when they can drive 2 or 3 minutes down the road to a couple of neighboring districts and make, considerably more, it comes down to a quality of life issue because everybody knows our grocery bills are not getting any smaller. So it's a profession of which people have to be paid, appropriately. So we're hovering just below that 50th percentile.
Okay, well, I think it's just another, my consistent view is that Granby, we work hard. We don't have an expense problem in Granby. We have a tax base that struggles to deliver the quality of life and services that our people want. And that's part of what we have to, I don't apologize for that anymore. We work hard at it. But so that's actually a segue into the information on special ed. I'm excited about this. My caution, my general caution is always that people have trouble understanding that sometimes we have to invest something in order to save something. They want us to run it more like a business. Well, businesses make investments in order to make money. So it's a hard, it is a challenging sell to ask to increase our costs in the budget so that the budget doesn't accelerate out of our control even more in future years. And I think to me, that sums up what you're talking about in some of the service. On the financial side, given that the service side is also very important. But I guess the one question I would have is there, you have the total number of kids with special needs against the total population. Is there anything out of the ordinary in Granby compared to other schools like us? We have about 20% of our kids are not average, I guess, or demand some special services. Is that more or less? Is that?
We are right on par
Right on par.
with the average. We're probably a little below the state average, Kate.
Still around 18%.
18%, so we're right around, we're right on target.
Right.
And, the label of special education is very, very multifaceted. We have to remember that we meet the vast majority of those students' needs in a regular education setting. If you walked in the door, you would not know which students might have an individualized education plan and which ones do not. This helps them meet their full potential. And there's a smaller percentage of that group that have very unique needs, and therefore they require very unique specialized instruction. We want to offer as much of that in-house as we can. The reality is we will never be everything to everyone, because some needs, whether they're medical needs or otherwise, we could not safely provide those services here in our district. Yet, we believe that there are more students that could be better served here in Granby with some development of programs. But the needs are they're varied. They're yeah.
And I know somebody who is participating actively in the Bears Academy, and it's tremendous service, and the way you were able to pull it together and make it happen without adverse budgetary impact. In fact, looking backwards, it has saved money. There's no question, because we didn't have to send kids out. So, and apparently the quality is exceptional. So congratulations. That's it for me right now. Thank you.
To clarify, the Bears academic program, is that a mandated program?
It is.
By the state?
Yeah.
Okay.
Up to 22.
And we can do it for roughly $48,000 a student.
Correct.
And we have 8 of our own residents, students in the program.
For next year. For next year.
And did I understand we had 2 students from other towns?
I believe we're anticipating to get from other towns, but that number's still early.
Do we charge them the same, are we allowed to charge more?
We charge tuition, and I believe that the number's approximate right now.
Yeah, right now we estimate about 50,000 per year, which of course, depending upon the cost, we reevaluate that tuition number every year.
Okay, just on 50. It may go up to 50,000 the year after next.
It has the capacity to increase, yes, because as our costs increase, we would be at the same time passing that on and charging more in tuition to those towns that send their students here.
The last part of the statement, we are allowed or we're considering to charge out-of-town students additional.
We do charge
We do.
now, and we are able to continue to do so, and we're allowed to adjust that cost. If our costs increase, we pass that along to the town that's sending the child here.
What's the additional tuition?
Right now, we're estimating about 50,000.
No, excuse, the out-of-town students will pay 50, while our in-town students will pay 48.
No, they don't pay.
Our students don't pay.
No, because we are mandated to educate, to have them in this program.
Thank you.
Yep,
But that's our approximate cost.
correct. Yep.
The present budget has got 4 full-time positions minus, correct?
Are you talking about the 3.8? The 3.8 reduction. Yeah, I didn't want to get confused with the 4 TAs that were being added, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's correct, based upon enrollment.
Based on enrollment.
Right.
So that if enrollment goes up next year, we may need to add a teacher or 2 if it goes up from the down 22 that we're projecting.
I want to answer this, but I'm going to pivot. I'm going to give this to Sherry, but just to make sure, because I feel like
We absolutely need to respond to the enrollment numbers. So let's just say, 30 kids move in over the summer. It's unlikely. But if that were to happen, we would then have to look at their grade levels and their needs. And depending on where those students entered our school district, if they were all elementary age, it's likely we might have to add a classroom teacher because the class sizes would get much larger than our policy allows. But oftentimes when students move in, they can be absorbed into the classes without any impact to the budget. So we watch that really carefully, but we're always looking to see, you know, are we moving the needle in a particular area where we have to add a teacher? I don't believe Granby has had to add a teacher in a while. It's more likely that what we do is we reduce in one grade level, but there's a little bubble moving through a larger cohort of students, and maybe we have to add that teacher to another grade level. But our bottom line wouldn't be impacted, if that makes sense. We have a little less children in first grade, but we got a little bubble of a year in fourth grade where we have more students. We just move that teacher to teach another grade level.
My observation as a resident, we've had 3 significant residential developments in town. Would the worry that would increase enrollment?
Right. I think right now we're not seeing.
We have not seen a
Well, we're down
considerable.
22, you're telling me.
Right, we haven't seen a considerable impact yet.
But I think, I mean, and some of this, I think is observational for me. I mean, it's my understanding that we have a lot of kids in one particular newer subdivision, but I think in other areas that are a little bit more settled, there hasn't been any additional children.
I mean, the newer homes have increased the population, but our older residents,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
We only have one new subdivision.
The one by the grant.
Martha's Way, the
Yeah,
grant.
Martha's Way, yeah. It fills a whole class. Yeah.
I'm a land use lawyer, so if I took the word subdivision literally, I get it. Sorry.
Sorry, I should have known better with the
The apartment, the grand apartments that generate students.
behind the, yeah.
Yes. All right.
The school resource officer, the salary is shared, as I look,
No.
no?
No,
School board's
100%
paying
school
100%.
board.
Okay. Does that mean a patrol officer will be added to the police department?
The patrol officer is added to the police department, but funded by
By the school?
the school.
Okay.
Is that correct, chief?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be assigned to the school.
The Board of Ed is paying the bill, but you'll get the person.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
We get the person, but they fall under his purview.
yeah.
Because
We don't have the means to, I do not have the means to supervise an officer of the law, so
That part of it.
really they're an employee of the police
Okay.
force.
But that officer will only, I would assume, would only be needed during the school year.
Correct. Unless, the SROs utilized for special programming, things over I don't know. I mean, I think we're in the process of developing that once the board approves it. So that would be a discussion I think that would be had, what happens over the summer.
Yes, typically it's training, summer camps with the kids. They have to be trained, so we usually save that to the summer. And the SRO programs that they have to, for them to keep up to date are usually in the summer because they know they're not in school session. So it's things of that nature that are usually taken up by the summer. And then any downtime would usually be to community where the kids are going to be either through the rec department or wherever, but it would be our students that they would still be interacting with. But that officer would be assigned to the school because the Board of Ed is paying for it. So it's not like I would pull them out to backfill for a patrol and say, oh, sorry, no, that's priority.
I was just comparing it to a teacher's calendar that yesterday was a no school day. The officer wouldn't be needed. The summer, schools shut down. Summer, the officer isn't needed, right?
No, I think what Chief Sansom was saying is that during the summer, the officer is going to be engaging in training programs, camps, things with the kids, keep the officer engaged with kids wherever kids may be during that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, you're done, Bill?
Yes. I didn't like the word done.
Have you completed your list?
I have. Not much for me, just thanks for the in-depth stuff on the special ed programs. They seem like very innovative ways to try to wrangle the continued increased cost of special ed. I mean, having been on the Board of Finance for a number of years, we kept seeing that really outpacing other expenses on the Board of Ed side. So congrats, it seems like very innovative. Like I said, hopefully it works out. I'm gonna hold my questions on the SRO. I mentioned to the chief and the captain that I was gonna reach out personally, and I'm gonna reach out to Sherry too. I don't know enough about what that role encompasses, so I'll do that on my own time.
Okay, yeah, they did do a really wonderful presentation as well with additional information. Honestly, I learned a lot about the SRO process as well, and was incredibly impressed by Chief Sansom's vision of it. And I felt very comfortable with it.
Is this at the Board of Ed meeting?
It was, was that?
I can send that to you if you'd like, and
December 18th.
February 5th will be the next opportunity to hear more about it, if you're interested.
Yeah, and it was February 5th, we've tried to get it out there that we welcome comments from the public. With the 750 responses we got a lot of questions. And Linda Powell is sifting through all of them and getting them all together so we can give people had a lot of great questions, and rightfully so. So, yeah.
Good. No, and I look forward to it. Thanks. That's all for me.
Are we going to?
Okay.
Yeah, I have more of a comment than a question. So I work in a neighboring district on a teacher contract. So I really feel strongly about the issue of teacher salaries, and it was one of the things that made me want to run for the Board of Ed. So just a little perspective, if I were to work in Granby under the current contract, I would make $80,000 a year. If I went down the street to Simsbury, I would make $111,000 a year with my master's degree. So that's 28% more. So that is, I know that they might not be in our dirt. Are they in our dirt right now?
No.
No, but they are literally down the street, and that is a spot that we do lose a lot of our teachers too if they choose to leave, and that's a substantial difference. So, that's another reason why I think a lot of our costs will continue to rise over time, because they are good at our competition, and we need to really keep the good people that we have in this district. I have 3 kids in the system right now, and very pleased with their education, but we have lost a lot of the folks that taught them over the years. So, I look forward to all of our work and continuing to really fund our schools.
I have no questions.
Wait, just let everybody go.
I should have went back.
Yeah, no,
It's not done.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll get back to you. Don't let me forget, though. Go ahead.
No questions.
No, we've been asking them right along, so no questions tonight.
Well, I look forward to working with the chief on the MOU. So I know 3 superintendents and 2 town meetings ago, we last looked at the SRO. That was our stumbling block, so I'm glad that we're able to get at least that in mind now and move forward for having an SRO. And as far as the sharing services in the town and the school department, was the advisory committee that she created on that, the inter-board advisory committee? I think Scott might have information on that. I think Kelly was also a member.
We actually reformed it. It's dormant, but we could pull it back together pretty quickly. So I have a couple of questions. Just a lot of my questions were answered, so thank you. Just I had the same concern around the SRO officer, so it's the cost, right? So we go forward, we got to kind of drill that down, because I think the total cost of salary, benefits, and training and all that stuff is probably more than what we target at this point. And I do want to talk about the SRO officer, because I think I want to give my perspective in a second, only because we won't have this kind of opportunity to discuss again as we've been. But before I do, I just have some questions on the special ed, because I know from serving on the Board of Ed what a struggle this really is. So with respect to building our capacity to hold the kids in-house, and it looks like we have, if I'm reading it right, we have 26 current kids that are outplaced?
That's what's called an October 1 snapshot. So I just want to be careful to overemphasize the numbers that are on that sheet. We are a very small community, and the privacy and protection of individual students is super important. So as those numbers get smaller, it's easier to identify individual students. So we decided to share this because it was presented in November by Kate Weingartner, our Director of Pupil Services. And it's what we call the October 1 snapshot. So every October 1st, we need to submit data to the State Department of Education. It's a snapshot of our data. And so at October 1 snapshot, those were the exact numbers. We've already brought back 1 or 2 kids from outplacement back into district, and because every single one of these students, it's a PPT, it's a placement decision that's legally binding. Today, there might have been a PPT that identified another child as special education, or said this child has met their goals and they're no longer in special education. So it's a very fluid number. So I just want to say that out loud so that everybody understands it's not exact.
So I intend my questions to be very general.
Got it.
So if I creep into the
Yep.
uncomfortable territory.
You got it.
Just stop me. And the reason I'm asking the questions is because I served 8 years on the board, and it took me 7 to even think I understood how the special ed worked. And I honestly don't think most of our taxpayers do understand. I do understand the complexity of it. So I'm trying to both reinforce the way I think it works and to help the taxpayers. So using that that snapshot, as you're trying to build your capacity have you articulated a specific goal? Is the goal to reduce that number, or is it to reduce the growth of that number, or both?
So prevention, which is how I'll define reducing the number, is always important, right? So the more early services that we have for preschool, high quality preschool programming, hiring on the BCBA, which is a really critical component of analyzing what a student's needs are and then putting a plan in place that we can follow, hiring the right people. All of those things are really important. And I do believe that with good preventative attention, we might be able to reduce our overall impact of students with high levels of need in special education. However, students that have individualized education plans are identified as such because there's been a rigorous evaluation process that has identified they have this particular need, and they're not learning in the same way as a peer of the same age. So we absolutely want to do as much education and prevention as we can. However, I don't personally believe that we're going to change the number. I think we're seeing a trend across the country with increasing special education needs, and we could talk for hours about why that is, but I think there's a lot of things happening in children's environment that perhaps is equating to specialized education needs. So that's always on the front burner. But more so, our goal is to develop programs that better meet children's needs in their home school at a lower cost than having to send them out. Just the transportation is a cost that is becoming, unwieldy for us to manage. Having to transport children from their home to these different specialized programs across the state, it's not good for kids, and it's very expensive. So if the child's needs can be met in these programs, we'd like to offer that to families.
So if the current trends continue, it's rough 20% where we're at, you guys see that increasing almost no matter what, right? That's the trend.
It's hard to say with any certainty, and this is not my area of expertise. Kate's probably cringing in the back. My Director of Pupil Services is here. So Kate, please, feel free to correct me, but, I don't think we can predict the future of special education, but if history what is that? The best predictor of the future is past performance or experience. We're seeing
After
it.
COVID, it's a consistency across the state that we're seeing, that and national. Just the mental health needs, school avoidance, coming back, returning to school, anxiety increasing. So it's a statewide and a national issue of needs.
Of our new students who enrolled from wherever, so we had about 28 new students, 6 of them came to us already identified as special education. So 20% is about right.
Okay, I was trying to do that same.
Yeah.
Okay, so just two other quick points. And again, I think the purpose of the question is to try to make sure that taxpayers understand that. So, but even if we're wildly successful, right, there's, however we define that, a lot of this is outside of our control, right? Because even if we want to keep the kids, and no, I don't know there's a single person in our community who would argue that we shouldn't keep the kids regardless of the cost. That's better for them to keep them in the district. But a lot of the times those decisions are taken away from us, right? Because of the advocacy programs that we're setting up, and the system that kind of determines whether we keep them or not, right? So we have to, some investments we're kind of taking, we're basing them on some risks or some assumptions that may or may not. You don't have to answer. Just
So, but what you're saying is an important point, because let's just take the Bears Academy. We understand what it is. It can be defined. It's children ages young adults, 18 to 22. They are identified special education students, and we are legally required, because of the unique needs that they have, to continue their education to 22. Granby is a small community. Next year, we have 8 students that are leaving Granby High School and need to continue their education. Because we have the Bears Academy, we can do that here in Granby with a high quality. If we didn't have it, you saw the number, almost $1.3 million to offer the students their right to have this extended education in a neighboring community. The following year, and I don't know what the numbers are, I'm going to make them up, but the following year, perhaps we have 4 Granby students. The next year, maybe we have 2. And then the year after that, we're back up to 8 again. And so that ebb and flow of needs, because we are so small, that's where, to Jenny's point of we're going to have to spend a little to get something in return. That's where, from a business model, which doesn't always fit public education, and it's not my area of expertise, if we have a program that's really great and we can adequately provide this experience to, let's say, 10 or 12 students, and next year Granby's only going to have 3, to balance the budget sheet, we, I believe, should afford those opportunities to our neighboring communities to say, would you like to pay the low price of 50 whatever and come right next door to Granby from Suffield or East Granby or even Simsbury, because you don't have this program and we do. So for that town, their transportation costs are less because we're right next door. They don't have to bus their students further. They feel comfortable with us because we're their neighbor. Families feel better about it, and we can charge what it costs us to run the program back to that community. So it really can be a win-win, but we have to look ahead. We have to be able to be really forward-thinking in the creation of programs that serve the needs of our Granby students first and foremost, but then understanding the volatility of these numbers. Today, a child could move in and have this need or move out. And we need to be planful about that as we project what our needs will be, because from year to year, we may not have that cohort of students that perfectly fit that model, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And actually, it's a perfect pivot to my final questions related to special ed, because I did have a couple questions on the Bear account. So my first one is, does that work the same in the appeal process there? Does it work the same as it does for the younger kids? So once they're in that transition program, can they demand to be outplaced, or is their only choice is you can take the services in Granby, or you can figure them out on your own?
So it's neither one of those exactly, but can you give a 60-second, like the PPT process and parental rights, like how that
Yeah,
works?
I mean, typically, it's really about if a program can provide what a student needs, a district can provide what a student needs. So if a student comes in with a complex medical need, I'll use medical because that's pretty easy. And, we have a program or can provide those services. Some towns have to provide, an LPN, a one-to-one. If a student has a G-tube, for example, or a feeding tube, or any sort of medical need, right? And if the district can't provide those services, for example, that's when the PBT could be looking at providing services out of town, out of district. So it really comes down to if the district, most of the time it comes down to what the district can provide appropriately. And is the student making progress, educational benefit?
Because we always want to meet their needs in their least restrictive environment, which is their classroom. We want their needs to be met in their second grade classroom
No, I'm
with
talking
their.
about the transition kids, not the kids in the second grade.
Yep.
The 18 to 22-year-olds.
It's the same thing. They have needs based on their PPT. If we don't have a program and they are legally required to be educated until they're 22, it is our responsibility and our financial obligation to find a program that they can attend. It's the same whether you're, as soon as you turn 3 actually, from 3 years old all the way to 22.
So the 4 new Bear positions, are they?
They're teaching assistants.
For the Bear Academy?
Yep, that's okay.
We don't need to hire 4 bears.
No, we don't need any more bears.
Enough of those for free.
Those are necessary just for the 8 students you're planning, or does that give you some capacity to do more?
Just for what we currently know. We only budget in our special education budget for known students. If somebody moves in over the summer, we haven't budgeted for them.
All right. And then, so then again, one last thing. So when we talk about the being able to keep them in-house generating savings, more along the point of like a reference Mike made much earlier, we're not really talking about savings. The taxpayers can't go and find a negative number in the budget. What we're talking about is cost avoidance going forward.
Absolutely.
Cost control, yeah.
All right, sorry, thank you. So,
It also benefits the community, to have students living and working in their community and being able to access their community. So there's benefits to the town and families for the students to be here.
okay,
Thank you, Kate.
all right. So I'm going to do my 1-minute thing on the SRO officer, and we're going to get to you guys, I promise you.
You still got to come.
All right,
I just had something.
You go first.
Some of the people in this room know that my wife taught in town for 25 years. I'm really happy with the retirement program that the state offers her, to back up the comment about salary. But I do know 2 people that have tried to get hired in this town, and because of the number of years that they have been employed already, and I would do the same, we could hire 1 or 2 year teachers as opposed to a 25-year teacher, okay? So it's like any other business. What do you want to do? Continue to pay, the teachers that have the ability don't have the ability to move anywhere else because they're not going to find, people won't hire them at the price they're at, or just understand that some towns pay less and some towns pay more. Some jobs pay more and other jobs don't.
But there
Anyway.
aren't, but the comment's been made that there aren't even enough new teachers coming in.
Right. Yes.
So here's what I'm going to do. Since that longer-term issue is not reflected in this budget, I'm going to kind of move on. Noted that we got a longer-term issue that we got in this budget. Because we haven't even got to the Board of Finance. You guys haven't even told us how crazy these budgets are. Just my perspective on the SRO. First of all, again, this is another example of folks being willing to take an 8-hour day and turn it into a 10-hour day because these are tough discussions to have, they're complicated, and just try to start to work through them. When I was on the Board of Ed, the SRO discussion happened, and the first thing we said was, yeah, we're not interested in that because the circumstances were entirely different and the proposal was entirely different. the way I've gotten my head around, and what I think is why it's important for us to have this discussion is because no matter what we do with these budgets, we're going to ask the taxpayers to reinvest in this town, okay? And I think it's very important that they understand what they're getting and what they're not getting, and that we are all on that same message. So we are also at a point in our history that we can actually make this work in a way that I think is very beneficial for the community, primarily because of the people we've got working on it, in terms of the superintendent and our police chief. He's got a tremendous amount of experience managing programs. He was part of the group that had set up the whole state regulatory system to regulate these programs. I think it's very, very important that we don't even create the perception in the public that if they support an SRO officer, they are gaining anything from a law enforcement side on the municipal side. Because in my own personal belief, the value of an SRO officer is not about law enforcement. They're not over there making arrests and those kind of things. The value is in the word resource. It's a person that provides a resource to students and parents, teachers and administrators, somebody they can trust to get ahead of problems when they're feeling troubled and those kind of things, right? To make that work, if it works right, I think we have a tremendous opportunity to improve our culture and our environment that we've never had before. And to make it right, that person, even though he or she will report to the police chief, because they have to, they're certified police officers, they should be dedicated entirely to the school district. You'll see in the budget, for example, that, we got state mandated summer athletic programs. You tell me you don't want the SRO officer around when the kids are doing athletic stuff. So it's very, very important to me that and we structured it, well, these weren't easy conversations to have at the beginning, structured this way so that the cost of the SRO officer is discussed as part of the education budget, so they could make those tough decisions about how they want to prioritize it. And the same thing on the municipal side. That we're talking about another patrol officer that we need, irrespective of whether we hire, and we had to figure out how to prioritize it. So I think we're in the right place to present this. But I hope everybody agrees that we have to be very careful to make sure the public understands that. I don't want the public to think they're getting, if they only approve a patrol officer, they're getting somebody who's going to be in the school more often, and vice versa. If they approve an SRO officer, they're getting more patrol coverage, but that's not the truth. Does anybody disagree with that? All right, you're up.
Can I add one more thing?
Bill.
Thank you, one more thing. I think the SRO has a tremendous opportunity to change the opinion of children in school toward their attitude toward a law enforcement officer.
Absolutely.
I know why I think I know why it got started, but I think it's got a greater potential to change the attitude of a lot more young people.
Thank you.
Are you done?
No.
Thank you, just say thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Barker.
Well, when the boards gather, whether it be at this point or in a couple of months when we receive the actual budget proposals, through the whole process, each board and collectively, we weigh what we'd like to have, what we need to have, what we think we can afford to have, and ultimately what we think can be approved at machine vote. I'm going to go to the worksheet, which we can have that.
Does everybody have it?
Yep.
Yeah, I want to see what it looks like because I'll work with it, but I'm not going to. My neck doesn't twist that way.
You just need to be near Mike. Yep, you just scoot down.
Okay. As long as Mark and Monica don't hit me, I'll be fine.
I will not hit you.
You sure?
I promise.
I can't reach their phone.
Not yet. Too early. Okay, so if we go to, essentially, this is taken from the worksheet from last year, which really going forward carried a bunch of threes. Essentially, if you run 3% budgets, you're going to tend to run mill rates that get close to 3%. This particular instance, I plugged in the numbers as best we know them. And again, thank you to Town Hall and to Nikki and Sherry for the input. Seems every time I ask a question, I learn a different number, an updated number. And even this, to a degree, is not as up to date as it could be. But if we change it tomorrow, it changes again anyway. So we go up on top here. Oh, I got to be closer, probably.
No, you're.
By the fence.
It doesn't show.
Oh, it
It
does.
doesn't show up on the white screen.
That's great. That's
A lot for technology, right, Mike?
It's the first thing we cut last year.
Pointer capability.
So fiscal '26. That has the municipal request or +1 of 2.4%. The debt service numbers, I combined, the new debt service use was the projects from 2019. At this point, I've combined them all up into the existing debt, because at some point, we will have future bonding to incorporate onto the sheet. As you step down to 1731, there's a difference of about 105,000 from last year, because it's really the same base number, except there's the last of the bond thing being applied to it. So it gives us a lower net expense for for fiscal '26. The small cap has a big bump, bigger than what the municipal budget shows, because the intent was, given what we've seen with inflation, what we saw last year with the capital needs in the summer, as put through to the Board of Selectmen, is we just need a bigger capital base to be working from to take care of our infrastructure. Subtotal, you drop down to the DOE number, different percentage for some, it's just rounding, 566, 567, and the total. Then if we go to revenue, the offsetting piece, because that tells us what those +1s plugged in will drive an expenditure. We need to go to the next page, the revenue side. There we go. And I'll come back to the tax piece up on top last. The auto interest and lien piece and local property tax is static. It's the auto supplement static in here at 740. Let's see. Intergovernmental I'll come back to, because there's some interesting things in that. 832 is local, that's taken from the current book, carried forward. The current year, we upped the draw from the general fund significantly, as it had been falling in the previous years. And that was one of the things that gave us the ability essentially to buy down the rate for the increase in budget from '24 to fiscal '25. But at that 2,185,000, that excludes the 2.6 or the 4.6 we were drawing from the general fund for the communications project. That's not built into this operating budget package going forward. It uses 2 million. And we really can't go up further than that because it tends to be that it's a safe assumption. There's about 2% of the budget that returns, or that the general fund will grow year to year from either unanticipated revenues or lapsed expenditures. The biggest part of it is the unanticipated revenues. It's a safety measure in case things go south. Because I have seen where you get into recession and everything falls apart. The interest rates, the building permits, town clerk fees, property tax collection rate, everything heads south. So it's a good safety factor year to year. So it doesn't not only cause a problem for the current year when that happens, but you have to drop all your estimates going forward to the next year. So you get into a bad year, and you've got some implicit natural property tax increase that you have to deal with, and you're still making up shortfall for all the things that went to heck. So in this particular scenario, it's got to use the general fund of 2 million. Intergovernmental is a slight drop. Some of you know it, some of you don't, but in the current year, the excess cost grant number is like 1167. It's anticipated for the current year, instead, according to the State Department of Education, to be roughly $500,000 less to the town of Granby. We're short that, which means the general fund is going to pick it up. But this problem, even though they passed a year ago, they passed the 3 tiers, that percentage reimbursement, we're supposed to be see 88%. Instead, for those cases that it applies to, instead, what we see is, Nikki, what was it, 62%?
62% is what we're expecting this year.
Yeah, and so for next year, talking to Nikki, it sounds like the gap is like 370. Offsetting it is ECS, she says, is scheduled to go up like 170. We'll know more once the governor's budget comes out. But there's some schedule that Department of Education has. With a particular number for next year. The Bear Academy revenue we don't have in the current year's budget. It does show on the statement of accounts at 85,000. And the projection was that it would carry forward to next year. So there's all these little pieces. In terms of the taxes, the property tax number, there's a couple of things that hit that. There's this a change in the motor vehicle calculations per the state that will cost us some money. There's a new program for those with military 100% disability. It's a complete exemption for their property tax, primary residence. That alone will cost close to $200,000 short revenue for the town for fiscal '26. terms of grant list growth, I've got 1.25%. I had put a year ago 1.75 because I had assumed Harness Way and Station 280 would be complete as of October 1st of '24, when the grand list is compiled, snapshot. But that's not the case. So basically 0.5% move from fiscal '26 over to the next list we'll use for 26 to the next list we'll use for '27. We run the numbers, that came out to roughly the 6% in taxes. And there's the rub, because that's a tough number to work with, which won't go past finance and it won't pass the public. So, we're waiting for January 31st, we get the number for the actual grand list. Then there's all the calculations and deductions to come out of it. First Wednesday of February, the governor will address the legislature and his budget comes out. All the statutory grants will get the revenue numbers. That may help. There's a lot of talk at the legislative, the state level, the Capitol, of putting more money into education. And we'll see where that goes. But, that's the problem that we run into. If education was 2% less than the 5, 6, 7, it would still put us at about 4.25% in taxes, all else held equal. If the municipal, the 2.4 was actually flat, that's 280,000. That's about 0.6% in taxes. We really can't go deeper to the general fund. I'd be reluctant to reduce the fee to the small cap because given the cost increases we see there for infrastructure, we're just going to shortchange ourselves. So we've got to see how the final pieces fit. Finance will discuss the tentative operating budget guidelines next Monday, but we will not finalize them till Monday, February 10th, because we need the governor's numbers and we need that final grand list number. And we'll see where we end up. From the board, input. 9:15. We usually do this in an hour and a half.
No, I would just say echo the challenges, right? And I think Mike generally really explains it very well. So a lot of data points to still fill in here, but we will need to look for some of those reductions to kind of reach where we think the town will really come in. As this current projection doesn't, I don't know that the town will accept that budget.
I don't think I've ever seen one approved with that kind of budget, that mill rate percentage in 40 years.
I certainly haven't, Mike.
Ben, Jenny?
Yeah, I think we're in a good place. It's like the tale of two cities in some ways. Fortunately, we have a general fund that we can contribute that amount to be able to, and also keep a balanced fund at a level that helps us out with our bonding and so on, right? So that we borrow at a cheaper rate. But I think hopefully the operating boards are hearing that we probably need you to think about a priority list And so where are you, what are things that have had to come off the table? Tough decisions, but to start to think about that, because I think driving up the revenue side is as much as I think the model can support at this point, absent of getting the numbers from the state.
Well, the state, even if they gave us $500,000 more, that's really just,
It's a, yeah,
1.1% in taxes. It's not going to change the picture a hell of a lot. It sure helped, but. Jenny, Bill?
There's no free lunch, so, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to put that number out to the taxpayers. On the other hand, the number next year and the number the year after, so I think we need to look at the revenue side and look at our balance sheet again. As Mike has pointed out, we've got funds that haven't been properly analyzed in a while, and I want to really understand where our balance sheet sits, because we owe it to our taxpayers to make sure and I like having a nice, healthy fund balance. But I want to make sure we know where we stand there, so. I'm sure there'll be some movement here and there, but I'm hoping that we can find some more money, more than cuts.
you know, and hearing the Board of Ed and really understanding deeper the special ed needs and what you're all doing, and having come out of the pandemic and seeing this is going to be persistent, right? We're not talking a one-time event. So, and looking at your +1 budget and seeing all that you're doing, what would be helpful is to understand what's the overall direction we're going in. How do we tackle this holistically instead of a year-over-year point in time reaction? And I think, and I'm not saying we're not doing a great job at it, it's just that it's going to be with us for 10 years. And it's going to show up over and over. There's going to be our increased demand is going to be there. You can see the handwriting with everything going on in the world today, that this section of our services is going to grow. And we just, and so I'd be interested, and maybe not for the budget cycle, this might be, we're just saying noted for the future, is how do we put our arms around this in a gradual way that allows us to fiscally support it? And maybe understand too with community input how we might have to adjust some of our thinking of traditional services and extended services, because it's going to be with us. We're just, I don't know where we are on the trend here, but we'll be in the same chair having the same conversation next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's two historical happenings that led me to realize this town was a very practical thinking community. And I still think it is. There was a request by the Board of Ed one year for somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 to hire an architect to build a new elementary school, which was Wells Road School. And one of the individuals got up and said, "What the hell do we need to hire an architect for? We have plans in the drawer." In those days, you own the plans of the building you bid, not the architect. $30,000 then was a sizable number today, if you think about when Wells Road was built. Well, Wells Road was built identical to Kern School, block for block, window for window. Another example came about. We had a student, our first student, that was wheelchair bound. And they progressed to the high school, which was multi-level. And the school board asked for an elevator. Now, I'm not picking on the Board of Ed, it was just coincidental that both those hit that way. And somebody got up and said, wouldn't it be easier to move the science classroom down to the first floor than spend $350,000 on an elevator? I give those two stories and say that there are people in town that still think that way, and have a real problem with the numbers we're talking about today. Real problem. So we always need to remind ourselves that just because things cost more doesn't mean there are people in town that don't have a problem with that.
Kelly, are you still awake?
Nope.
Yeah, I just can't get it off mute. I have nothing else to add.
All right, Fred?
Little levity. I know ClearGov's going to be great. I hope to see that. But I spent like 10 years trying to figure out this, Mike, so I hope you never change it because I finally understand it.
I'm going to try not to.
You know my next thing about them.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Anybody? Questions, comments?
I mean, I don't have any questions, but I mean, I think we understand, you know, what's going on here. There's no, we understand what needs to be done. And, you know, we're hopeful that the state will be more receptive going forward, but I think we all are on a similar page.
Mark?
Sorry, no, I don't have any additional questions.
No, I would just say we got a lot of work to do. And I would echo what you said. It's not just what we're seeing in our town, but then you level on top of it, Art. No disrespect to any state legislator, but when you crow that you've provided tax relief for like military personnel because you gave them a total exemption from your property tax, you didn't give anybody tax relief. You just passed it on to somebody else.
Somebody somewhere.
If any of you state legislators are listening, if you want to provide tax relief, quit passing unfunded mandates, or maybe just start by funding the mandates at the level you promised when you adopted them. But we got a lot of work to do. I appreciate all of you in this room, because together we'll get there one way or another. Any other final comments?
Just to comment on the budget workshop date.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew I was going to forget. So do you guys know, we're going to probably publish, we're going to publish pretty quickly. We have our workshop schedule already set. We're going to publish it. We're going to start pushing it out. Do you guys have a set schedule for your workshops? Do you want us to include it in our communications?
We do, and Linda Powell did speak with Catherine today. The only question, and we haven't had the opportunity to discuss this yet, is the time. Last year, we had moved, I know at least one of our workshops to an earlier start time rather than the traditional 7 PM meeting. So we just need to discuss that, and then I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
How quick how quick do you guys think you'll get there?
Tomorrow?
You can't stay until. Thank you very much. I think it behooves all of us to start pushing those things out.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're only a couple days away, hopefully, from being able to.
We
push
have the
those.
date, we just need to settle on the time.
On the time.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're lost by agenda. I will accept a motion to adjourn. Move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Kelly.